Today, we're looking at Robert Oster's Peppermint. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Robert Oster's Peppermint is a green ink, and to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Levenger TrueWriter with a broad nib to take my notes for this video. But before we get to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And it's really a much more complex green ink than I was expecting. It looks like a gray across the bottom, this very bright green and very, very bright blue across the top. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And that gray had been trying to hold on and started pushing up as much darker. It also made the green much darker and the blue. It affected all three of them quite a bit for being given a little bit of time to sit. Only 10 minutes. It makes me wonder if some of it could stay around. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. Now I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it basically handles it pretty well. That extra fine turns to about a medium, but it is completely readable, and it didn't bloom out all over the place, making me afraid to use it in a note-taking situation. Surprising considering how water did. Water's reactivating and lifting it completely off the paper. Now it's not a clean white circle, but that was only 30 seconds of a water droplet. Given a little bit more time, I think that water is all that it would take to get this out of your pen. We easily see the dots of the Rhodia dot pad there. Pen flush did nothing more than water did. Now the more ink that's there, I think just more got left on the paper, not that it hadn't removed it. But I don't know that you're going to need pen flush for this. And bleach, as is normal, completely removes it from the paper, but there is no need for a 1/3 bleach solution to get this out of your pen. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Robert Oster's Peppermint has a viscosity of 2.34, making it normal. Normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper with the extra fine and medium nib. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Robert Oster's Peppermint has an average dry time of average 17 seconds. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is an amazing color. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade, but the color's so spot on. It reminds me of exactly what those after dinner mints look like. The extra fine is a noticeably darker tone. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen. It offers spots of shading, like the X in Fox is much darker. Lazy is a much darker word than dog. Over is much lighter a word than the. So shading is there. It is possible. We just don't see tons of it all the time. It's the color with the stub that's amazing. 13 seconds to dry. Medium is a way darker tone with no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. 16 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine and the medium show us no color variation, although we do get some with the extra fine. And the smear test, you could likely recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Rhodia, no bleeding. Of course we get ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. It's a fantastic color. Now the tone of the extra fine is much better than we saw in the Clairefontaine for this. It doesn't get too dark. It becomes a nice mid-tone on this. This is nice. The extra fine is no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. 17 seconds to dry. The medium becomes a much darker tone. Again, I don't care for that tone.
It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 25 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it. In the smear test, you couldn't recover this if you smeared while you were writing. So Rhodia, no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen. It has spots of shading, like the B in Robert is darker than the rest of Robert. The loop of the O in Oster is darker than the rest of Oster. The T in Peppermint gets darker, so it's capable of it. It just doesn't come through in a lot of spaces. The extra fine is a darker tone than the 1.1 with no feather, spread, halo sheen, and it has spots of shading again. These spots of shading, like the K in quick, is much darker. The word quick is much darker than the word brown. Dog is a much lighter word than the word lazy. 14 seconds to dry. The medium is a much darker tone with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, 18 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, although in the extra fine we did get some, and the smear test, you probably could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Black and red notebooks, no bleeding, no ghosting. Some of the best tone here, I think. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading, which is very nice. It does this kind of mid to, or light to mid tone shading throughout. There's never see the dark tone. It's a light to mid tone, like we see it in Pepper. It goes from the mid to light to mid. It stays with mid, then it gets to light at the bottom of the P's. The E to R, it shows the light. At the beginning of the M, it gives the light. Very nice stuff. The extra fine is a slightly darker tone with no feather, spread, halo sheen, and yes, we do get some nice shading throughout here. Very casual shading, like the L in lazy is darker than the rest of the word. Over is a lighter word than the word the. Quick starts as a mid-tone, gets lighter, gets much darker at the K. Brown starts very dark and works its way lighter, 11 seconds to dry. The medium is a much darker tone with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, 15 seconds to dry. The scrubby for the extra fine shows us a little color variation. We got some. The medium shows none, and we got none. And the smear test, you could likely recover it if you smeared while you were writing. So Limon paper, lots of bleeding, lots of ghosting. You can't use the back of the page. You are not ruining the page underneath, though. It didn't bleed through and touch the page underneath. The 1.1 has spread. It has feather. It has no halo, sheen, or shade. It's disgusting. The extra fine, has spread, has feather, no halo, sheen, no shade, 12 seconds to dry. The medium has spread. It has feather. It has no halo, no sheen, and no shade, 17 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it. We didn't get it. In the smear test, you could probably recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Elon notebooks, which is not a fountain pen notebook. It had plenty of bleed, plenty of show through. It does not touch the page underneath, but you can't use the back of the page. The 1.1 has feather, has spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a darker tone. It has feather, it has spread, it has no halo, sheen, or shade, 2 seconds to dry. The medium has spread, has feather, has no halo, sheen, or shade. It took 5 seconds to dry. The extra fine and medium scrubby both show us no color variation, and we got none. The smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. And that is all that I have for the writing.
Instead of finding inks that look like Robert Oster's Peppermint, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. Now, I wanted a very bright ink, and I like reds, but I decided to go with a pink here. I went with Diamine's Pinky because it is a very nice pink magenta leaning color. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Robert Oster's Peppermint? I think this is a great shade of green, and it shades very well. But I do think you will get even better shading using a stub nib with this pen. with this ink. Reverse all that. You know what I'm saying. Thanks for watching.